everyone, Digital David here. Today in this video, I'm going to be checking out the MSI PANO M100R PZ gaming case. MSI did send me the sample, but any opinion expressed in this video is strictly my own. That being said, if you're interested in this product or you want to find out more about it, the link to it will be in the video description. Take a look at the retail box and packaging. This case is available in two different color options, black or white. We have the black version here. You'll see some additional technical specs there. And then we'll rotate it to the other side where it highlights some of the key features of this particular case. Back and neck compatible, 270-degree panoramic tempered glass, USB Type-C, 3.2 Gen 2x2, and it has reverse blade fans as well as your ARGB hub. Now let's go ahead, let's open this up and see what's inside. Here are all the contents. First up, we have our product literature with regulatory information and a quick install guide, giving you a very brief overview of how to get everything set up and ready to go with your new gaming case. Then you'll see our hardware kit. Looks like we got some zip ties, cable management, screws, level, a couple of clips, things along those lines. And then last but not least, we have the case itself. Let's look at this in more detail. Starting with the top of the case, you'll see our metal venting here and the really unique design, much better than your typical just rectangular design. We got an edge up here, it slopes downward, and then you'll see a couple different angles here along the front. On the back side, you'll notice we have two screws that we can loosen and a handle here to remove. Once you pull it off, here's what the inside looks like. And then here's a look at the case with it removed. Plenty of mounting options here for all of your cooling needs. Next, you'll see the front panel here. It's technically two sides with our tempered glass encasing both of those sides. Moving right along now, we're looking at the bottom of the case here. You'll notice we do have the option to remove this. It's just magnetically held in place, so we can easily clean that screen and filter as needed. And you'll have some more metal venting here and maybe a couple of mounting points depending on the direction you want to take this build. Now looking at the back side, you'll see the MAG logo and branding here. Motherboard I/O slot. We have one fan installed, multiple expansion slots here, additional venting and power supply room down at the bottom. Looking at the back panel of the case, you'll see additional venting on both sides, giving us some breathability since we've lost all of our airflow on the front panel. Then we can just reach up in the top corner to gently pop this off to reveal the inside here. Take a look at the 3 installed fans, bringing our total to 4 included fans. You'll see our hub and connection options down here. All of our front panel connectors there. Hard drive mounting options if you want some SSDs. And our cable management channel right there. Now we have the last side here to look at. Again, tempered glass. We got to peel this off once it's time. But you'll see our black bezel along the sides. Well, I should say the top and one side here. And then down at the bottom, we have our front panel connectors here. So power, LED, mic, headphone jack, USB Type A, and USB Type C right there. And then just like the back panel, we can gently pry off the front panel from the top. And now we're looking at the inside, seeing all 4 of those fans in a different direction. Motherboard with standoffs already installed. MSI logo and branding down here. Plenty of additional venting that I'm seeing at the bottom. And pretty cool to see that tempered glass along the front as well. I really like these panoramic views on these cases, just refreshing and unique. Now let's go ahead and get our PC built. First things first, we're gonna prep our motherboard. We're gonna add our CPU, we're gonna add an M.2 drive, and we're gonna add 2 sticks of DDR5 RAM. The CPU we're gonna use is the AMD Ryzen 7 7700X. So let's go ahead, let's get that installed right now. We're gonna pop this open to reveal, ta-da, our AM5 socket here. Grab our CPU. What you're going to do is make sure you have this little golden triangle, if you can see that. We'll line up with the little triangle up in the top left-hand corner there, and on the cover you'll see the little triangle right there as well too. So just gently set it on there, and then we'll just go ahead and put this back on. And there we go, pops right off. 1 down, 2 to go. Now let's go ahead, let's remove our heatsink there and we'll get our drive installed. We're gonna install our drive in the first slot that you see right here on the board. Just line it up like so. Take this screw and fasten everything back down in place. All right, drive's been installed. Now let's go ahead. We have our 2 sticks of RAM right here from Lexar. This is their Thor DDR5, up to 6,000 mega transfers per second. And on the board, it's clearly marked for us, just teeny tiny, which 2 DIMM slots we should use. It's gonna be this last one and this, I'm gonna call it the second one. So just make sure you have your pins the right way. And we don't. We have to put it this way. And then just gently press in place. Very satisfying snap. Same thing on the other one, and just gently press in place. There we go. CPU M.2 and our RAM has been installed. To prepare the cooler for installation, we have to basically add a bracket that's compatible with our AMD motherboard since we're using the AMD Ryzen 7 7700X CPU. The good news is we can leave this bracket on the board and continue to use it, so it makes installation a little bit easier in my opinion. For the cooler itself, basically what you see here is what you're gonna get. So this is gonna go onto the CPU like that, and this will mount to the top of our case. So with that being said, I need to make sure to route this wire back this way, out through this channel on the other side. That'll make our life a little bit easier when it comes time to connecting those cables there. And then on the bottom unit, we went ahead, we peeled off the sticker. Make sure you do that before you get this installed, but we have to attach this bracket, and it's just going to gently slide in place onto the side just like that and snap right in. So pay attention to how I have it. Those pieces are gonna point up. That's what you need to know, and then it just snaps right in, and then you can press it to remove it if you ever need. But those snap up, so this can actually rest flat on the CPU with your thermal paste to actually provide proper cooling. So to get this assembled the rest of the way, then we're gonna take these pieces that you see here that are gonna latch underneath to keep everything firmly in place. So that's what we're dealing with right here. We'll be installing those with these screws. So just line them up like so and gently tighten everything in place. So it should look something like this when you're all done and ready to go. At this step, if you want, you can go ahead and attach your fans. I'm gonna do that for this build. We're gonna get those attached right now. I know where my cables are routing out on the back side, so make sure you don't get confused at this step. You can always wait till you get this installed too, but I like to do it now. So I know where my cables are routing out, so I can line my fan up with those holes just like so. And then we can drop these long screws in place. We'll have 8 of them to fasten them onto our radiator. And there you go. Now you have one prepped cooler all set and ready to be installed once we get the rest of our core components put into the case. Now we're gonna drop our motherboard in place. Now they're not labeled in the hardware kit that comes with your case, at least if you're gonna use the same MSI case that we're using. It's gonna be the only bag though that has all of the same screws. That should help you identify it pretty easily. You'll have more than, I think, the 8 screws that we're gonna need here, but those are the screws you're gonna wanna use. If you're using this motherboard, nothing to worry about, but make sure at this step, depending on your motherboard, you go ahead and put your IO shield in place if needed. And we're gonna gently line this up. Make sure it looks good on these standoffs. Should be right around there. That looks pretty good. And now it's time to drop all of our screws in place. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws here. Now we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna install our AIO. So I took the top panel off, again, just 2 screws, and it slides right out. Since we'll be doing a back connect style with this build, it'll be nice to get this out of the way before we even plug and connect the power supply. So to get this installed, first thing we're gonna do, line it up, make sure everything looks good. So that'll go right up at the top, and then this will come down in place right there. So we need to grab our 8 screws to fasten this part in to the top of our case. So we're gonna line it up just like that with all 8 of our screw holes visible and mount it in place. So we're gonna line it up just like this with all 8 of our screw holes visible and mount it in place. All right, there we go, nice and snug. Now we're gonna take the fan cables and just route them through the top while we have probably some of the most room to work with at this moment, so we can easily get to them once we start putting the top and things back together. Now we're going to make sure everything lines up how we want it before we put any thermal paste on. And that's looking pretty good. It'll be just like that. And then we'll tighten everything down in place. So those brackets will come up underneath, snap in like they are right there. And ta-da, there we go. So now let's put our thermal compound on. I like to apply it just right in the center, that nice P-shaped amount. All right, looking pretty good there. And now let's line this up and tighten it down. I got the back one in first so we can see a little bit better on the front end here. All right, cool. So they're both in right now, and then we're going to take our screwdriver and tighten them down the rest of the way. All right, so you're going to tighten them until they won't tighten anymore, and now we can just kind of position that how we want and get ready to. We'll have our GPU to install. But before I get any further, I want to go ahead and wipe this down with the cloth, so hopefully we're not touching it again. Now we're going to install our GPU. I have a 3080 FE lying around here that we're going to use in this build. So we're going to remove the 2 brackets on the back for the first 2 slots with our Phillips head screwdriver. So then we can just gently drop our GPU in place. All right, so I should have it lined up, and then it should just gently snap in, just like so. Sorry, my big head would have been in the way. But we got the GPU lined up now, and we can take those 2 screws and put them right back where they came from. There we go, now our GPU has been installed. To install the power supply, I'm gonna go ahead, connect all the cables you see here to the unit itself, and then we'll work it in from the back, fasten it in place. We have our main wall power. We're gonna have 2 CPU cables here we're gonna use to connect both up there. We have our lone GPU cable. That's going to be great. Very minimalistic on the front too, especially since we have this back connect design. So that'll be nice, just 1 cable up there. This is going to be so we can power our LEDs and fans right there. And then we have our motherboard main cable right there. So now let me undo them and attach them here. Here's a look at all of our cables connected. SATA connector right here for our fans and RGB, motherboard cable, 2 CPU cables, and our GPU tucked away underneath. We have plenty of additional ports in the future if we ever want to add anything. That's what's nice about having your fully modular power supplies. Now we're just going to gently work it in the back here and fasten it with the included screws with the power supply unit to the case. All right, now you'll see if I turn it over here, being careful not to damage any of our front panel glass, you'll see right there we have the power supply installed. Now it's time to plug in some cables. So we got quite the rat's nest going on back here, but we'll be able to get everything tidied up. First, we'll start with the power supply. This is so cool. This is my first time building with back connect. This is amazing. So we'll take this cable that you see right here. We'll just line it up and it'll go right in place on the back of our motherboard. This is way too cool. And they'll just gently snap right in. So there's our main power. We only have a couple more cables left. So we kind of just did a light build with this. We have our 2 CPU cables right here. And for this build, we might see, I think we can go up through the main channel too. We have the option, we could go this way as well, but they seem plenty long. We'll probably try for this side. And this is so nice. I usually have trouble with these cables. What a luxury. So I believe I want this one on that side and that one there. So theoretically, we'll plug those right in. They'll snap right in. That's the easiest CPU cables I've ever plugged in. Okay, yeah, cool. That'll go right through there. That'll be great. And then really, with this, we have 2 more cables, our GPU, and we have our basically accessory power cable. And I kept this one tied, so maybe we could just kind of cram it in there. And that guy's just right down here. So we'll line that one up. Only fits one way. Don't want to break anything. So that one's now snapped in. We can kind of tuck that guy out of the way. And now we're going to route our GPU cable for our power up through to the front to our GPU. So we got him up and out, and then we'll just gently line him up and press him in place. I love the yellow connector because all the yellow's hidden, so we know we have a nice firm connection. Now it's time for all the rest of the cable. So we're going to start up at the top right here. This first one is going to be our pump, and we're going to connect that to pump fan 1, just like so. And then these two are going to go, these are the two fans for that radiator. We're going to connect those to our CPU fan 1, and we'll use the included adapter that came with our AIO to connect those. Now we're moving further down in our rat's nest here. We're going to connect our USB type C right there. The Velcro strap's in the way, but that's okay. We'll just kind of push it out of the way a little bit. And then it'll just be nice and gentle, nice and snug. And then we have our USB 3.0 with a nice 90-degree connector right here. Perfect for this setup. Gently press that in place. And then you'll see we got our front panel connector right here. All of it in one piece, which is great. That's going to go in your JFP1 option. So easy. Love when they do that. And then we have, looks like HD audio. That's going to be right here. Plug that in. There we go. And then we should have our fan cable hiding right here. That's what we got. Do we have room for this? We're going to connect this to one of our open fan ports. So I see system fan 2 down here. That might be our best option if we can make it there. Let's do system fan 2 for that. And then do we have, what do we got here? We got some of our RGB as well too. So if we want to connect that to our board, looks like we have two options right here. JARGB V2 1, JARGB V2 V2. So if we want to use that with our motherboard software, we'll need to connect this to one of those. So let's do that right now. Ta-da, there we go. I believe that is every cable. Now, let's go ahead, let me snap my fingers, and this will be all nice and tidy. Good enough to call it a day. Now let's go ahead, let's plug it in, powered on, and try it out. Here's a close-up of the case. We'll start from the front. Take a look at everything in there. Our fans as well. Got a nice glow to them. Plenty of room at the bottom still. Here's a look at the back side. Power supply, GPU, motherboard, and the back panel. See the glow of the fans. All three of them. Power supply down below with our fan hub. Our back connectors, so cool. Compatible if that's the route you want to go, which I really like on this build. And then here's a look from the front panel through the glass. Great view in there. And if you can see it from the very top down with the cover on, everything turned out great. Now we have the lights turned off here so we can showcase the built-in RGB with the 4 included fans. We're just going to use the LED control button on the bottom corner of the case to be able to cycle through the different colors and lighting effects for you here with the lights off. Very bright, nice diffuse light. There's all the colors you're seeing. Nice rainbow RGB. Some of the different lighting styles and effects that you can toggle through with seamless control without having to use any additional software if you don't want. You can control all the accessories right there. We'll cycle through one more time. And back to, where is it? My favorite one. We got to get there. There it is. Pretty sweet. Nice, bright, beautiful RGB. Now it's time to establish a baseline so we can stress this system out. So you'll notice at idle, our baseline is going to be 37 degrees Celsius for the CPU at about 25 watts. Our GPU about 29 degrees Celsius at 10 watts. Hardware monitor breaks down a couple more of those temperature values for you depending on which value you're interested in. And then you'll see Task Manager just showing the utilization of the CPU and the GPU basically at 1%, as low as it can be in this idle state. Now let's go ahead, let's stress this thing out and see how warm it gets. All right, so our system's been under a full load for over 10 minutes. No issues at all. Everything's very stable as you would expect. Let's look at the CPU first. You're seeing that we peaked at 95 degrees Celsius. Don't worry, that's normal, guys. These chips are designed that way, so it's going to protect your CPU. 100% utilization, 95 degrees Celsius, 133 watts, and we're still getting 4.6 gigahertz for our CPU, so great to see that there. Next, you'll see our GPU. We're at 73 degrees Celsius. We peaked at that temp, 318 watts, and our full utilization there. Nothing out of range, everything as you would expect it to be, well within spec and not providing any issues. Nice, stable, and reliable, whether it's idling or it's being stressed out at 100%. All right, with the thermal cam out, thought we'd take a look now and see how warm the build's getting when it's fully stressed. Now I did take the panels off, but as you'd expect, the GPU is going to be the hottest and warmest thing. But seeing a lot of heat being dissipated all around the motherboard as well. Surprisingly, our cooler, as you would probably expect, is doing really well. Thought that might be a little bit warmer than it is. It's great to see. Doing an adequate job on the CPU. Go underneath the GPU, get a feel for some more of those measurements there. And you may have noticed the bearings on the case fans. A little bit warm in the center. Here's a look from the side. Our hotspot down at the bottom for our GPU and our power supply, as expected. Here's the I/O shield on the back side. Not too shabby. And then here's a look at the back side. So a lot of heat from the motherboard on the back. That's where all of our headers are that we're connected to, like our CPU up at the top. Main board power down here. See that hot spot there. The rest of our cables at the bottom. And the power supply. Pretty cool. It's smoke machine time. This is my favorite test where I can show you visually what the airflow is going to look like in this case. We have everything still maxed out at 100%, so we can show you with everything revved up what it would look like. Some of you might have reservations about not having that traditional front panel and mesh here for breathability and fresh air intake, but we have 3 fans on the side, and with how they're designed, they're reversed. So these fans are actually bringing in cold air from the back panel. So don't worry there, don't stress. Let's go ahead, let's fire this up. Watch as the smoke enters in the back, and you'll see that's pulling it in, bringing that smoke into the computer, your fresh air. See how that moves around? And then watch as it exhausts out. So we'll crank it out here in just a second. Break up some of that so you can really see this, but watch what happens here. Look at that. So those 3 fans are configured basically backwards. So bringing all that fresh, cool air in, our radiator with those fans exhausting it up and out, and then the fan on the back is not backwards, as you're seeing here. It's exhausting all of that out of the case. So these 3 fans, they're going to be the air intake, our 2 exhaust out the top, and 1 out the back. Let's do it one more time. That's pretty sweet. So hopefully that gives you a good indicator that we're getting plenty of airflow in this case. I've had a great experience building in this MSI Meg Pano case. The panorama view is really going to be what's going to make your build stand out. They have nice aesthetics too, including 4 case fans. I'm glad they didn't skimp there. And they went the extra mile to make these 3 aesthetically pleasing while still allowing airflow to come into the case versus acting as additional exhaust points. So, love all of the thoughtfulness with this case. They even give us a 90-degree USB 3.0 connector. But because of all that thoughtfulness, I was kind of taken back a little bit during the build process. And our USB Type-C cable is still your standard straight connector. It's not at 90 degrees. So it's interesting that they went through all that to change the 3.0 connector, but not the USB Type-C connector. And that one plugs straight in the back. So there's just not really any clearance between the back panel and that connector. So I'd love to see maybe that changed or reworked in the future. Maybe that's the fault of the motherboard itself versus the case, but it'd be nice if they took that into consideration more. It all works. Again, I'm just being really picky here, but the whole point is if you go through all of that trouble to swap fans, put the 90-degree 3.0 connector in, why not finish what you started and make it a little bit easier even for the USB Type-C cable? Not sure if that's just an adapter, if there's anything that can be done, but I'd like to see that changed in the future. Everything else is great. No issues at all whatsoever. Plenty of fans, plenty of room, nice and quiet. Thermals are fine, especially without the front there having the 3 fans on the backside. Definitely more than makes up for it. So no issues there. It really just comes down to aesthetics. What do you like? And then pick, do you want the black or the white?